to India and Ireland, round Africa and back again. We don't really need to know just where we'll go. Maybe Canada, then to Brazil, then through the Alpine foothills. All I really want to know is, can we go? Oh baby, can we go? Round and around the globe.
Welcome to Take Me With You, episode 124. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Cheryl. We are two well-traveled people who want to go everywhere.
But that's not going to happen. So instead, we'll travel vicariously by inviting a guest to share their unique travel stories with us.
But today, once again, just like last week, we are taking just a mini break from guests and just, talking about various travel topics. And so today I have a little game prepared.
Oh, but I'm not prepped. What if I lose?
Oh, gosh. Well, okay. So there's no point keeping, and there's no right or wrong answer. This is just like your science classes, Ryan, where it's like whatever you want the answer to be, that's fine. Just like look within yourself, and there you will find the information that you need. And if your answer is different than my answer, it's true for both of us. So that's okay. I'm making you so mad right now.
I really wish our listeners could see what expression is on my face right now.
Well, okay. This game is all opinion based. Does that help you?
Yes, that does help a little bit. So we're not
We are
really
going-
competing. It's not a competition sort of game.
Yes.
It's fun sort of game.
Yes, we are just sharing our thoughts and opinions on some things.
Great. I have thoughts and opinions.
Good. Well, then we have a podcast.
Sweet.
So today we are going to play Love It or Leave It.
I feel like we should have some cool like music sting going on there. Da-da-da-da. I don't know.
Pew, pew, pew. So I have a list of maybe like 20 or 30 very popular, well-known tourist attractions from around the world that either one of us or both of us have been to.
Okay.
And we're both going to share if we think it's worth it to go see the thing, and then if it applies, like go inside of the thing. Because
Okay,
sometimes it's
so-
like, yeah, go see the building, but don't waste the time on the tour. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Now, are we saying if you are already in the city where the thing is?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So you're already there. So not whether or not it's worth traveling to the place to see this thing, but just if you're already there, is this something it's worth it
Well, it
to
might
spend your time to
depend.
go see?
It might depend on the thing. So we'll evaluate
Okay.
as we go.
Okay. Great.
All right, we're going to start with the Space Needle.
The Space Needle, that is so tricky because probably similar to you, I've just always known the Space Needle. Growing up in the Seattle area, and when I was young, my dad worked downtown. We grew up calling it that it was my dad's Space Needle because we, for some reason, thought it was his because it was like right across the street from where he worked. And so,
Wow.
yeah. So like literally it was like, it's always been there. So to me, it's like, well, yeah, of course you would see it. But kind of like you said, whether or not it's worth the money to go up into it, I don't know. I think it's worth seeing though. The Space Needle is cool. And I haven't been in it since it's been
I know.
updated. I think you and
Yeah.
I have talked about doing that.
Mhm.
And then this whole coronavirus, everything shut down happened,
Yeah, that's gross.
and we haven't had a chance.
Yeah. I would say definitely see it.
Yep.
Maybe the new observation deck is worth it, but I would say it's cooler to get a good view of it than to go up it. And it's getting more and more
Yes.
expensive to go up it, and
Yep.
it does take time. So if
Yep.
you're in Seattle for a couple days, maybe just go to a really good observation place, like Cary Park or
Cary Park, yeah. Yep.
things like that, and get the nice view of it as a
Yep.
part of the skyline.
Although I will say, if you happen to be in Seattle on a day where the weather is clear, the view from the Space Needle is pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's true.
If it's cloudy or foggy or anything, definitely not worth it because you're not going to see much.
Yeah, that's a
But
good
if it's
point.
clear and Mount Rainier is out and all of that, I think it might be worth it.
All right. We have one more local one for you and I. Pike Place Market. Or as other people would say, Pike's Place
Pike's
Market.
Place. Yeah, there is no S on there. Yeah. Pike Place. Right. Well, you go first on this one.
I'd say love it. I love to take my friends there when I have out of town guests. I think I love a market, and they're not
Mhm.
as common in the US, as opposed to in other countries. And you kind of have to battle the crowds, and I wouldn't stay there super long. But if I'm like toting around Seattle, I might pay for 1 hour parking and walk around there and wave at the first Starbucks and like buy some flowers or some jewelry or sipping chocolate, or like a fun little treat or something there. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I think I would agree. I think it's pretty iconic. So in that sense, there's a lot going on. So you got a lot of options between the Flying Fish and, like you said, the original Starbucks, and there's just shops and vendors that have all sorts of like artisan things, and it overlooks the waterfront, which is great. But you don't necessarily have to spend a long time there, but you can if you want. And then there's, several things that are just off from it as well. So like Post Alley and the Gum Wall and
the gum wall. I love the gum wall.
right.
Yeah.
And so there's some things like that I think are fun. I don't feel like I as a local need to go there a ton, but I do think it is a fun place to take people. There's some good food spots there and some
Yeah.
stuff like that. So yeah, I agree.
All right. The Eiffel Tower.
I actually would say love it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I loved the Eiffel Tower. If you go all the way up, it's way taller than the Space Needle, and the view
Yeah.
I thought was amazing. And even just the idea that I think it was built in the 1800s, I think, right?
Mhm.
And just kind of the wrought iron and the look and the structure. I don't love the line to get in there. And I would say if you can walk instead of taking the elevator up to the first level, it's way faster. Or I believe you
Mm.
can actually get reservations. So either way, to avoid standing in line for over an hour, either get reservations or go all the way up, or be able to walk if you feel like you can. And then yes, I would say I love it. How about you?
Love it. Go up it for sure. What a good view. Even if you don't go up it, make sure you see it. But it's visible from so many parts of the city, and you can see it along the river. It's a
Mhm.
really pretty view with the Eiffel Tower. Like there's a reason it's so iconic.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Hollywood.
Oh, Hollywood. I probably leave it. It's trashy. And I don't mean that like Hollywood people or like Hollywood as the institution. I mean Hollywood is in the city that you walk down is kind of sketchy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you agreeing both that it's sketchy and to leave
yeah,
it?
it's like not only is it nothing special, but it's like more on an area where I'm like, oh, this is kind of just gross. It's
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
Don't waste your time. There's so many cool things to do in the LA area.
Yep.
Do not waste your time with going to Hollywood.
And if all you want to do is see the Hollywood sign, you can see that from lots of different places that aren't
That's
actually
true.
Hollywood. So Yep.
Big Ben.
love it. I love Big Ben so much. I don't even know why. I just do. I love it. You?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I mean it's on a river. I love a building on a river too. I think
Yep.
that's special. But it's such a pretty building. And
Oh, it is.
yeah. It's really
It
cool.
really is. Although, if I remember correctly, technically Big Ben is the name of the bell inside the tower. even though we all call the clock and the tower Big Ben, I believe that's technically the name of the bell. But we all know what we're talking
Is
about.
this like one of those Frankenstein's monsters things?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I think so.
I'm gonna do the next one, the Colosseum.
Because I'm in there.
Yeah. You have to see it. And I would even say try to see it at nighttime at some point as well, because they light it up and it's really pretty. And it's just such an interesting building. Again, like so iconic.
Yeah.
If you want to go inside, it's pretty cool to go inside because you get to see like the arena and everything. And then I've heard doing some of the like more extensive tours where you go and like see the underground area and everything are pretty cool.
Oh, cool.
Too. But at least go see the outside. But yeah, it is impressive. And they've been cleaning it. It might be done. Now, they've been cleaning a lot of buildings in Rome, and so it's probably newer and shinier looking now. Which
Interesting.
Is kind of funny. Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of scaffolding around it when I was there.
Huh.
Yeah. All right. Here's one for you. The Kremlin.
I would say, I mean, I wouldn't say love it per se, but it's definitely worth going if
Okay.
you're already in Moscow. It's cool because the Kremlin is just this whole area. And it's kind of this almost like fortress, like with a wall around it and all this stuff.
Wow.
And then I would argue what technically people think of the Kremlin, which isn't necessarily the actual Kremlin, which is like right outside it, that has that iconic church with like the kind of like the ice cream spiral scoop top on it and stuff, is gorgeous. And Lenin's tomb is out there. There's a lot of stuff that's right around that area that is pretty cool to see.
Awesome. Man, we've been pretty positive about these so far. Here's one
Yeah.
in the U.S. again, the Grand Canyon.
I'd say love it. I liked it. I've been twice, and I would go back again. I know a lot of people who have said that they're underwhelmed by it, but I think it's gorgeous. It's a different type of beauty, and it's so big that I think sometimes it's hard to fully like take it in, and it doesn't always look real, but I think it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been?
Yes, in elementary school. And it was foggy when we were there, so we did not get the full impact of it. But I would love to go back. I wanna hike it at some point. Actually, I think that'd be really cool. But I'm on board for the Grand Canyon. I'd like to go again. Let's see what else I have.
We are pretty positive. What's wrong with us?
I know. Well, this is funny to me because we often talk about getting off the beaten path, go experience what the locals are experiencing and don't do just the touristy things. But it's also like maybe you should probably go check out the really famous building or whatever in these places.
There's a reason
that
it's
you're visiting.
famous.
Yeah. I mean, other than the Mona Lisa, but she's not on my
Yeah.
list.
Yeah. Well, okay, but here's one that could be on your list
Okay.
that I'd be interested.
You do
The
one.
Louvre.
That was on my list. What do you think about the Louvre? Love it or leave it?
I would say leave it.
Oh.
I would totally say leave it. I'm not an art person. Not that I dislike art. But I'm not an artist, and I don't understand it. Like, it's not my thing. Like, we've referenced at the end of every episode Beth Reed Miller, a good friend of ours, who is an artist, a great artist, and has studied art and understands all those things. So for someone like that, I would say definitely go and see it. But for me, we saw, 3 big things, one of which was the Mona Lisa. That was a huge disappointment. And I was like, great. And I mean, our tour guide said, you could spend days to try and see all the things that are in the Louvre. And I was like, yeah, I think we were there for like an hour and a half and I was done. So I would be okay with saying leave it. What about you?
Oh, gosh. I might leave it too, but is it because I've been there? Like, would I want to go at some point in my life? I do like a museum, and I like an art museum. My favorite I've realized more in my recent travels is if there's like an exhibit on an artist. I like that.
Mm,
You can follow
yeah.
their story, you can learn about their style.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel so random, you know? And so like I went to the Picasso Museum in Barcelona,
Mm,
and you walk like chronologically through his work, and it's very cool to see that, especially you hear about like Picasso learned how to paint very well before he started developing his own unique style, and it was
hmm.
cool to see that, you know.
Yeah.
And so I think I really like an exhibit where it's like about an artist. I still like an art museum sometimes, so but I wouldn't stay for super long. I don't know if I like a large museum as much because I get so overwhelmed, though.
Yeah.
I think I like a
Yeah.
smaller museum that's a little more focused in whatever they're doing.
Yep. Yep.
So, like, I'm kind of middle on that one.
Like, I don't think it's a waste of your time if that's the sort of thing that you are really interested in. And I would have probably felt disappointed if I had been to Paris and not gone to the Louvre. I mean, I think it's worth going to some of the, the big major museums like the Louvre or the
Mhm.
Hermitage or ones like that, the Smithsonian,
Yeah.
those things. I'm not saying that skip it just because it's a museum, but like if I had limited time in Paris, I don't know that I would say that's a top one that you
Yes.
have to do.
Yes. I think you have a week in Paris, go to the Louvre for like a half
Yeah.
day or
Yeah.
something. Like, go for the morning or something. But if you have like a day or two, if you're stopping in Paris, then that's an easy one to cut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you do need to see the Eiffel Tower.
Yes. Yes. We agree on that.
Yep.
All right. Ryan, you have
Cheryl.
talked on this podcast about a Stonehenge replica.
Yep.
You've been to Stonehenge, yes?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so have I. So, love it or leave it.
Love it. But I don't know that that is going to be a popular answer. But for me, love it.
Why?
Now, as having done more travels and having discussed things on this podcast, I think it fits into my ruins fascination.
Oh.
At the
Was
time, I
that
didn't
the
know it.
start of your love for ruins?
I mean, it was the same trip when I saw my first ruin with Fountains Abbey, but I had been fascinated with Stonehenge, seen it on TV programs and things like that. And I knew I wanted to go there when we went, and it was a day trip that I was definitely interested in doing. And I'm super glad that I did. And if I went back, I would totally go back again because it's just so fascinating to me. And now like the astronomy with it, the fact that they think it was probably a calendar of some kind, and how huge those stones are. They are so big. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't, like you don't get a good sense of it. And at least when I was there, you couldn't even go up to them. You could only get so close, and they're still so big. And I found it really, really interesting. So for me, it's a love it. I know a lot of people are less interested in it. So I'm curious what your answer is.
I loved it. It was when I went to England with my family, and we rented a car and did a loop around the country. And so I'm looking at a map now, and we went to Bath, and it's not
Yep.
too far from Bath. So I'm
Yep.
guessing we went there around that time. And I remember driving, but if you're in London, it's an hour and 45 minutes to drive there.
Mhm.
So if I were in London, I would not bother to rent a car and go out and drive there or find a tour bus or something like that. I don't think I would. However, if I had rented a car and was going to Bath, I would go there on my way to Bath.
Yeah.
So it's one of
Yeah.
those, like, if I was nearby, you got to go to Stonehenge, but I don't know if I'd cut time out of London to do that.
Sure.
Yeah. It's pretty cool, though.
It is pretty cool. But I will say, I went with my cousin. I loved it and was super impressed. He was like, meh. He didn't think it
It's a
was.
bunch of
I mean,
rocks.
he didn't hate it, but he actually, because the tour we did, it was a day trip from London, and it was a bus tour, and it was Stonehenge and Bath, and he loved
Oh.
Bath so much more than Stonehenge. I also thought Bath was interesting, but I loved
Yeah, Bath was
Stonehenge.
pretty
So
cool. I remember
yeah,
liking it. That
yeah.
was when we were both there in the summer of 2000
Uh
separately.
huh. Yep.
I wonder if our families knew that we were there at the same time. Because, like, you and I didn't
Probably
know that, but we weren't
not.
friends back then. But,
No.
like, maybe not. Yeah, that's so funny. Um, the Redwoods.
I mean, they were awesome. So probably love it, I would say. I think it just depends on what that means because the redwoods, there are so many different parts of the redwoods and amount of time that you could spend in the redwoods. And are we talking the trees of mystery here? Like, what are we, what are we talking about? Um, so, I mean, I think the redwoods are super impressive and they're beautiful and they're gorgeous. Um, Whether or not it's like are you on a road trip and the purpose like when I went was to see the redwoods, or is the purpose you're going somewhere else and you're trying to decide whether or not to take a side trip through the redwoods? Do you have kids or not? I think kids would be way less interested in the redwoods
Yeah.
because it's just a bunch of big trees.
Yeah, because I was there as a kid, and I think I liked the fact that we were on a road trip more than caring about the red. I did like when we got to drive through one, and we have a
Yeah,
picture of our car in the middle of a redwood tree, but it's more of an adults appreciating it type of trip.
yeah,
But I would say love it. I would say go on a redwood road trip,
yeah,
or even if you're like headed up north or south on the west coast, it'll tack on a couple more hours to your trip. It's way less
yeah.
efficient than heading on I-5, but it's gorgeous.
It
It's a
is.
really cool area. Yeah, it's just
Yep.
you cannot fathom how large those trees are. It's
Yeah.
very cool.
And there are multiple places that you can go off from I-5 to see
Mm,
the redwoods. It's not just one location. There are a bunch of different both national and state parks up the coast. I think it starts basically north of San Francisco and goes almost all the way up
mm-hmm.
to the border with Oregon, off and on, right? It's not
Yeah,
like solid the whole way anymore. But so there's lots of ways, depending on where you're driving, where you could take, a couple hour detour and see the redwoods.
nice. The Sydney Opera House.
Um, I mean, I think you could leave it. It's cool. I didn't go inside, so I haven't been inside.
Okay.
If you had a chance to hear like a show, go to see an opera or a symphony or something like that there, I think maybe that would be really cool. I enjoyed seeing it when I was in Sydney. So if like you're in Sydney, definitely at least drive by or do something so you can see it because it's pretty iconic. But I don't know that it requires you to make an extra effort to actually go up to it.
Okay. So it's just like you're like, yep, there's that building that I recognize. It looks great.
Kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it looks exactly the way it does in all of the pictures and all of the postcards. Like it looks exactly the same. You know how sometimes like with like Big Ben, we talked about
Yeah.
Big Ben, right? To
Yeah.
me, it's gorgeous in pictures, but it is breathtaking in person.
Mm. Yeah.
Like it's
Yes.
so cool in person. Same thing with like Stonehenge. You can see it in pictures, but you go there in person and it's so much more impressive. Or the
Mm.
redwoods. Like there are a lot of things where it's very different when you go.
Yeah.
At least to me, the Sydney Opera House is still cool, but it looks about the same. It's
Got
just
it.
closer.
So like I've seen Finding Nemo. So I've seen the Sydney Opera House.
That's basically what I'm saying. Yeah. Mhm.
Which is not even a picture. I'm gonna do one, the Statue of Liberty.
Oh yeah.
Um, I've climbed it in
Uh-huh.
8th grade, and then the last time I went to New York, I did not even see it.
Okay.
And I like climbing a building a lot. I think it's really
Yeah, you
fun to
do.
get in a building and get to climb up it, and it's cool that it's on an island. That's really neat. I think as an adult, I would enjoy the whole like visiting there more because of the history. As a middle schooler, it was like, class trip, part of this East Coast class trip. And so
Yep.
I thought it was cool when I was there. I appreciated it, but I think I would appreciate it more now as an adult to go like learn more and see the history and everything. And then I would want to climb it because I like to climb a building. So and yet I didn't choose to do that when I was in New York the last time.
Gonna ask you about that.
Because there's so many other things in New York. I mean, I was there for like 4 days and saw 2 Broadway shows and another play. So I was so excited about the theater.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a solid maybe. If you had a week in New York, I would say yes. If you have a couple days, no. That's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's one for you. The Ring of Kerry.
I would say love it with a caveat.
Okay.
I loved it the way that we did it. We didn't do it in a bus tour, and we took Rick Steves' recommendation and we actually drove in the opposite direction around it than the way all the buses go. And so we were able to, for the most part, miss the buses and miss the crowds. And we took the little Skellig kind of detour that got us away from a lot of the crowds and the people. And in that case, I thought it was beautiful and it was
Nice.
a great drive. But if you were going to do it with all the tourists and on a bus, I don't know, maybe not. I mean, it's still beautiful. Like the scenery doesn't change, but I do think that it's different from a bus.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Okay. Let's do the Golden Gate Bridge.
Oh, I would say love it.
Yeah.
I think the Golden Gate Bridge is cool, both to drive over and also to walk, because you can walk over it too. And even if you don't walk over the whole thing, you just walk, some of the distance. And I know at least on the south side, they've got, some little mini like monument-y things. And one of the things that I thought was cool, I don't know if you saw this when you were there, but they have like a section of one of the cables that like they cut, like maybe it's probably an old one, and it's like and it's huge, and you can see how it's made of a bunch of bundles of smaller cables that are like bundled together. It was very, very cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I've driven over it. I have not walked over it.
Okay.
I love it. I like the view from the other side that's like not attached to the main city, because you can go like if you go on the exit right after that and go up this hill, you get a really cool view of it in the water. I mean bridge, that makes sense. But yeah, I think it's hard to miss
Yeah.
when you're there, so that helps as well. But it's kind of a cool experience if you can drive over it too, or get a nice viewpoint of it.
Yeah, I think so.
Apparently walk. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
I like that. Let's do the White House.
Leave it. Now, to be fair, kind of like you were describing with some of the trips that you did, I was in elementary school when I went to
Yeah.
Washington, D.C. It wasn't a school trip. It was a family trip, but I was still in elementary school. And we didn't go in the White House. So I don't know what that, like maybe it's really cool to do the White House tour. But it's like, it's a building. And at least with my kid memory, kind of like we've already said, it looks like all the postcards and all the pictures. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, if you're in DC, maybe like drive by. Like I feel similar to what you're saying about the Sydney Opera House. Like it looks like what you think it's gonna look like. I don't know if they offer tours, but I didn't go in, even if they did offer a tour. It was on the 8th grade class trip.
Yeah.
But I also like do not care about politics. And so a place that's like, oh, this is where like the politics are happening, that's like not gonna grab me. You know, I'm not really excited for like, oh my gosh, the president lives there. Like that doesn't really do anything for me. And so yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
I hear that.
better than Hollywood.
Oh,
Like where
yeah.
the stars live is like.
Oh, yeah.
Because it
No
is
question.
pretty.
It is, yeah.
But yeah, if you're there, maybe like do a drive-by.
Yeah. I mean, obviously this is a long time ago, but I haven't been there post 9/11, so I don't know, with the increased security
But
and
yeah,
all
can
sorts
you
of
even see
things.
it anymore?
Like I have no
I
idea
don't know.
how much harder it is to see or get in. Like I have no idea what any of that stuff
Yeah.
is like anymore. So,
All right, I have one for me. You already
Okay.
know what I'm going to say about it. La Sagrada Familia.
you're gonna say leave it, aren't you? It's no big deal. Totally overhyped.
Oh my gosh. I mean, you and I both appreciate a cathedral.
Yep.
Just, I mean, architecturally,
Yep.
and it is the most unique cathedral I've seen, and it's gorgeous, and it's so interesting, and the story is interesting, and you should do the tour and learn the history and what's going on there today. I mean, yes, like spend your time there. Go back again because the lighting changes different times of day. I mean, just like spend the time to experience La Sagrada Familia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so because my brain is weird, I just had a thought that I have to share
Yeah.
with you now.
Okay.
So I just did like a little mini time travel thought experiment in my head. What would La Sagrada Familia look like as a ruin?
It would look like how it does right now. Have you
Because it's
seen
not done yet.
pictures of? I mean, you've seen pictures of it.
I have, but like without, like if it doesn't have roofs on it and it's missing a wall here or there, or
Yeah, I mean, it is under construction, so it's kind of like that in a way. But look up, just Google the east entrance of La Sagrada Familia. It has a very different style than the west entrance.
okay, east entrance. I'm pulling it up right now. Hold on. Images.
It already looks like it has like it's been under the ocean and like has had waves
Oh,
against it for a long time.
interesting.
Doesn't it look like a sand castle or something?
It does. It kind of, yeah, like mud or sand. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's very intricate when you get up close. But I feel like it already looks like a ruin. I mean, I love it, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's already got that style. Yeah.
Interesting.
You got to go there.
Ah,
All right, Ryan.
it's on the list.
Here's one for you.
Okay.
Galaxy's Edge.
I mean, I loved it. I mean, would you expect anything else from a Star Wars fan? I loved it. And I loved it in the day. I mean, so I've spent a whopping 2 days at Disneyland, which was half of the amount of, and not even full days, because as y'all have probably heard, our trip did not go as planned. But I went back to Galaxy's Edge both days. And one of the days, I think I went back twice. And I think I've talked about this on the podcast, but going back at night is super cool. The way that it's lit up at night is
Ooh.
really beautiful because they've got lights on all of the rockery and all of the stuff. And it's very, very cool. So I loved it. But I mean, like, would you go to Disneyland and just skip part of Disneyland? Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe I am a partial completionist. Can you be a partial completionist? Now that I
I
think
don't
about
know.
it, I say that,
I'm
and I'm
not
like, I don't
sure.
think you can do that. But it just seems silly to go to Disneyland and skip a whole
Sure.
land.
Is Galaxy's Edge worth the Disneyland ticket?
It depends. Are you saying if the only thing you got for the price of the Disneyland ticket was Galaxy's Edge, would it be worth it? Is that the question?
Is the amount of
Well-
satisfaction you got from Galaxy's Edge worth going to Disneyland?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's a good
because it
review
wasn't
then.
just Galaxy's Edge, because it was also
Sure.
Disneyland. But
Yes.
like Galaxy's Edge opening was what motivated me
Yes.
to go to Disneyland. Like
bother
it had been
to
on my
go,
list of
yeah.
like, yeah, okay, I want to go. Yes, I'd like to get back at some point. But Galaxy's Edge was like, okay, now it's time to go to Disneyland. We need to make this happen.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. San Marcos Square.
Oh, in Venice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I love Venice. So I think love it. I mean, you're gonna agree, right?
Oh, Venice is amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think
Yeah.
your experience with Venice is other people's experience with Paris. That's my working theory.
I think that's correct. I think that's
But
correct.
Venice is like worth the hype.
Yeah.
It's so
And
cool.
and and I think you're right because people talk about like the romance of Paris, which I've been like, meh. But I would describe Venice as a
Yes,
romantic place, not
totally. Yeah.
necessarily like love romance, but just like the ambiance of romance. And I don't know how to describe it, but
The
like,
lamps have pink glass in them. So, yeah.
yeah,
It's the narrow, winding streets
yeah,
and all the waterways and the old, beautiful buildings. Yeah.
yep.
San Marcos Square is also crazy impressive because I didn't know anything on that island was going to be that big. And it's
Mm,
huge. So that was very surprising to me.
yep.
The Blue Lagoon.
Oh, in Iceland. That's so tricky.
Raving review.
Well, so here's the thing. I really enjoyed it. It was awesome. We went like the day that we landed in Iceland, so we were jet lagged. It was a great way to just kind of relax when we are first getting there. You got off the plane. Obviously, we had to drive there, but it was one of the first things we did, which was great. And I loved the experience. However, it's a spa and it is not cheap. And so
Mm,
whether or not, I mean, I didn't pay for it separately. It was part of like the whole experience that we
yeah.
did. And I was chaperoning students and all of that. If I were to go myself, would I pay the money for that experience? And I think the answer is probably no.
Mm, okay.
But it was a great experience and it is very cool. And I did love the experience. But if it was just on my own, I don't know that because I think it was, I want to say like $100, $120, something like that to get in. And I just don't know that it's worth that amount
Mm-hmm.
to me.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to do one Central Park.
Oh yeah, tell me.
It's awesome. Um, it is huge. It's really big. And it is so, so nice. And it's really peaceful. And like, but it's nice enough that like, it was a sunny day when I was there in November. And so
Mm.
I like laid out on the grass because people will like treat it kind of like you might go to the beach. You know, they'll just like lay out in the sun there.
Oh,
And
okay,
so, but
sure.
it feels really comfortable doing that. And there was like a crepe stand. So I like got a crepe and
Mm.
laid out on the grass. It was lovely. But I think what Central Park offers to people who live in New York is a bit of a respite from the busy city. And it's right there.
Mm.
It's so easy to access from so many points in the
Yeah.
city. And it's kind of that break and that breather. And even when you are visiting New York, it's pretty nice to have a breather for a minute. And so,
Mm.
because it feels so busy there and so many tall buildings and um, kind of can smell sometimes. I mean, just it's a big city, and so having a
Yeah.
moment to like be in a peaceful park is really nice. And there's like a cool castle thing somewhere. I mean, there's like lots of cool things to
It's a
see.
castle.
There's something that looks like a castle. If you've been to Europe, it's not like I shouldn't call it a castle, but yeah, go to Central Park. Now I'm gonna look up the
Mm.
castle too.
Well, and Central Park it has like its own museums in it or something, doesn't it?
I think so. I
Like
think
it's
there's a
almost
zoo
like a
in
mini
it.
city itself.
Yeah, there's a Central Park Zoo, I'm pretty sure. And then there's like this really famous, what is it? Tavern on the Green is like that famous
Okay.
restaurant that's there, I believe. The Belvedere Castle is um over the Turtle Pond and was built in
Belvedere or Belvedere? What'd you say?
mm, either one. Belvedere, maybe.
Belvedere. Belvedere. Oh, that does
It's
look very
pretty.
castle-like.
Yeah.
And that's in Central Park?
Yeah. That's in Central Park. Central Park is
That's
really
so
big.
weird.
And there's like really pretty bridges that go over these pathways.
Wow.
It's a really pretty park.
Wow.
I mean, when I visited New York at the time, I was living in the mountains. And so it was very like country mouse going to the big city. And so where I lived was gorgeous and lots of nature.
Yeah.
But still, it was really fun to visit Central Park. That was a nice little break between like fitting a lot of stuff in, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. All right.
Now we're going to transition to the last segment of our podcast called Wish You Were Here. In this segment, Cheryl and I are each going to highlight a travel attraction that we've been to that we think is really cool. Think of it sort of like a little snapshot of the place that says, hey, this place was really awesome. We wish you were here. Cheryl, what would you like to do for your Wish You Were Here this week?
I would like to share about the Boston Common. Have you heard of the Boston Common?
I've heard of the Boston Tea Party. Is it the same thing?
No, it's not that. It's a
Then
park.
I don't think I've heard of it.
It's a park that's in Boston, and kind of in Boston proper, which
So
Boston's
why don't they
not
call
a
it Boston
huge...
Park?
I don't know. Isn't common like an old school word?
I think, yeah, okay, maybe. I think you might be right.
Because it says it dates from 1634. It's the oldest city park in the U.S.
Oh, wow.
So
That's
maybe
impressive.
it's just an old timey word for an area
Park.
that we don't use
Yeah.
as much right now.
Okay, I'll buy that.
It's really pretty. I mean, I got to go to Boston in the fall, and so of course I had to go to a park and see all the gorgeous trees and everything. But yeah, they have like a garden area with this really pretty pond, and there's a little like suspension bridge that goes over it, and swan boats that you can rent apparently, which I did
Wait,
not do.
Swan boats? Like boats that
like-
are shaped like swans?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So it looks really fun. I did not do that, but I think you should do that if you go there. One of my favorite things at this park, actually, I love a statue. They had the Make Way for Ducklings statues.
Should I know that?
It's a book. It's a sweet little book about making
Okay.
way for ducklings across the street.
Okay.
And I think it's in Boston. And so there's like this row of ducklings and the mama, and it's located on Google Maps, so I was very excited. I took a selfie with the ducks when I was there. But it's a fairly sizable park, and it's a really like such a good city park, and really well laid out, so gorgeous. So when you're in Boston, go to Boston Common.
Noted.
What about you, Ryan?
Well, I would like to tell you about a place that I don't think has a name. Like it doesn't have a cool name like Boston Common that I can share, but it is in Bern, Switzerland. So that's cool in
That
and of
is
itself. But it's just this like little offshoot that I just kind of found wandering the city. In Bern, there's like the main kind of road that goes through the main central part of town where you can see the clock that I shared in a previous Wish You Were Here. And it's really just kind of the main thoroughfare that you can kind of walk down. And if you walk south down that, eventually you'll get to a bridge that goes over the river. And then where that bridge ends, at the end is the Einstein Museum, which I've also talked about because it's amazing. But just before you get onto the bridge, on the north side of the river, if you're walking south, you would turn right. But for those of you who are north, south, east, westers, it would be west. And you go west right as the bridge is starting to kind of like become a bridge, if that makes sense.
Okay.
And you just kind of walk off to the side there, west a little bit. There is a beautiful view over that valley. where you can see
Ooh.
kind of the hills and mountains on the side. You can look down over the valley, and there's just kind of this kind of open area. It's not really a park. It's not big enough to be a park. It's not grass. It's just kind of this back behind building area, but it's open and overlooks it. And Cheryl, just because I can, I'm going to show you a panorama picture that I took
Okay.
while I was there to give you an idea of what I'm
Oh,
talking
that's
about.
gorgeous.
Is that not beautiful?
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so pretty.
Yeah. So it really is beautiful. And of course you can see the Einstein Museum, which almost looks a little bit like a castle there in the background. But so it's it's not anything amazing. It doesn't cost anything, but it really is a beautiful, beautiful view. And so it's worth taking a few extra minutes and pulling off to the side. Or I think the back of a restaurant is over here on the
I wanna
side. So
eat
maybe
there.
yeah, maybe you grab a snack or like a coffee or tea or something and just kind of sit and just watch the beauty both of the city and of the river and the valley and all of that stuff there. So again, I don't have a cool fancy name for it, but I think it's beautiful enough that it's worth it.
Awesome.
We would love it if you would follow us on social media. We are at Timwy Podcast. That's at TMWY for Take Me With You Podcast. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram.
You can also email us at timwaypodcast@gmail.com. Send us suggestions of guests we should have on, topics we should cover, and tell us, did we get it right? Did we love and leave the correct things? Would you love and leave different things? The places that Ryan and I haven't been to that are really iconic, tell us if they're worth visiting too. We want to hear.
Absolutely. You can also call us and leave us a voicemail at 406-763-8699, or another way to remember that is 406-POD-TIMWY. We would really appreciate it if you would rate and review our podcast to tell other people what you think about it. Share about our podcast on your social media and subscribe to make sure that you don't miss an episode.
As always, thank you to Beth Reed Miller for the awesome artwork. You can check out more of Beth's artwork at Beth Is Something. And thank you to Erica Corbin for the use of her song Round the Globe. You can listen to Erica's music wherever music is sold or streamed.
That's all we have for this week's episode. So until next time, remember to take me with you.
Take me with you!
Can we get a sailboat chasing down the sunset as we float round and round the globe? Salty air and balmy nights, guided only by the lights above, and a little love. Oh, the world is out there waiting to explore, and all our troubles here want them to be